Right, and on to the business of commodities now. A High Court in London has ruled that the oil major Royal Dutch Shell cannot be sued, at least not in UK courts, over oil spills that took place in Nigeria. Now, this is a significant setback to attempts to hold multinational commodity companies liable at home for the activities of their subsidiaries. Villagers from the Bille and Ogale communities in Nigeria's oil-rich Delta region were trying to pursue oil spill claims against the company's Nigerian subsidiary Shell Petroleum Development Company of Nigeria in British courts. Now, if the High Court had ruled in favour of these two groups, other claimants against British-based multinationals could have been emboldened to pursue legal action through the British judiciary. The court, however, did rule that the suit did not establish that Royal Dutch Shell, the parent company, had any direct legal responsibility for SPDC's actions. Lede, a law firm that's representing the plaintiffs, has said that it will appeal that ruling. Let's dig a little deeper into the meat of this particular story. Richard Bestek joins us now live from London. Deji Badmus, of course, is joining us from Lagos as well. Richard, let's start with you. The court argued that the claimant effectively failed to prove that the parent company, Royal Dutch Shell, bore legal responsibility for the actions of its subsidiary in Nigeria. How exactly did it arrive at that conclusion?
Well, Rama, according to the lawyers representing Shell, it is all about jurisdiction, and the High Court Judge Peter Fazer here in London agreed. The case involved, as you were saying, Shell's Nigerian subsidiary SPDC, which runs a joint venture with the Nigerian government. The case presented by the lawyers for the people of Ogale and Bille rested on the argument that Shell, SPDC's parent company, should have responsibility for its Nigerian arm, and so the case should be heard in the UK, where Shell has its headquarters. They also claimed that they wouldn't get a fair hearing in Nigeria because of the government's close associations with SPDC and Shell. The judge, however, ruled, quote, "There is simply no connection whatsoever between this jurisdiction and the claims. The claimants and the company," he said, "were both Nigerian." The ruling, Rama, as you were saying, is a blow for campaigners who had hoped the case would set an important precedent on jurisdiction, paving the way for other cases to be brought against Shell. Lede, the law firm acting on behalf of the farmers and fishermen of Ogale and Bille, said they were surprised at the ruling, and they immediately lodged an appeal. So a setback for the claimants, but it's not the end of the legal road yet. Rama.
Indeed, and we'll get back to that question of jurisdiction and precedent a little later. Deji, let's come to you. Assuming that Lede, for example, do lose the appeal, will the citizens from these two villages in the Delta sue Shell's Nigerian subsidiary in Nigeria?
I mean, that's exactly what would happen, Rama, if these communities, if eventually they lost the appeal. They obviously would have to come back to Nigeria, but we do not know if they want to file a case against Shell here in Nigeria. I'm talking about the subsidiary of Shell now, SPDC, because as Richard has been saying, SPDC runs a joint venture with the government here, and the belief of the people of those communities now is that it will be very difficult to get a judgment now against SPDC because the government, of course, will be involved in that case. But the fact is that it really doesn't play out like that because the judiciary here is pretty independent. You know, it's a setback for the community, and it's also a setback for those who might be contemplating taking their cases to London. But then we just have to wait and see how the appeal goes. But there's no question at all, Rama, that if they eventually lost this appeal, they would either have to come back to Nigerian courts here, or they might just have to sit down with SPDC now to seek some kind of out-of-court settlement, if you like.
Indeed. Richard, let's come to you. Other cases of a roughly, broadly, shall we say, similar nature have ended with the parent companies being told, look, you are liable for the actions of your subsidiary. A Dutch Court of Appeal in 2015 held to that ruling, essentially, and it involved actually the same company here, SPDC. Similar one, 2012, at the European Court of Justice. So what's different about this particular outcome?
Well, you're right, Rama, and indeed only last year 16,000 farmers and fishermen from the town of Bodo in the Niger Delta, in the same oil-rich area being worked by Shell, were awarded around $75 million by the company. But that payment was made with the very intention of avoiding a potentially embarrassing legal tussle in the High Court here in London. It may explain also in part the welcome Shell has extended for the latest ruling in the High Court here. What the lawyers in London this time failed to establish, and which the other courts that you mentioned there in The Hague succeeded in doing, was tying in multinational corporations.
I'll have to interject there, Richard. I do apologise for that. We do have to move on to a developing story.